Join me as I go from noob to a little less noob. Hey, welcome to Miniature Journey. I'm Jay, and today we start our journey from very, very inexperienced to hopefully, at some point, a little bit skilled. That's the plan. So the idea behind this channel is that we're going to go from very little experience and hopefully work our way up over time to be able to paint like you see in pictures and on the internet and in Games Workshop windows. And I think this would be a really good place for people who are sort of on the edge of the hobby, not sure whether to enter or not, because they see all these amazing models and they think there's no way I can do that. And I want to sort of prove the fact that you can learn to get up to that skill. We've got Leela here. Say hi, Leela. So, the plan today is I'm going to take one of the models, which Leela's sat on. So I'm going to take one of the models from the box of really old miniatures that my dad dropped off. If you don't know about those, I have put a little video up explaining how I'm getting back into the hobby. It's been 20 something years since I've actually painted a mini. So we're going to take one of the Bretonia bowmen that I painted all those years ago, and we're going to paint a brand new one. And ultimately, it's going to give us a sort of an idea of the level I'm at now. I'm not completely clueless. I have watched a lot of YouTube videos to get an idea of how, because you never had this years ago. Years ago, you didn't have YouTube and the internet and places to learn how to paint and do all these different techniques. You sort of had the Games Workshop book, which sort of showed you a little bit. But apart from that, that was it. You could go into Games Workshop itself and learn off people in there. I was always afraid, you enter it and they all seem to know exactly what they're talking about. And I don't know anything. So I avoided that. So I want to give a shout out to Squidmire Miniatures. I've been watching a lot of his videos. He's really, really talented. If you haven't checked him out, go and do so. And today we're going to be mainly concentrating on layering. Now, I've never done layering before. This is my first attempt. So fingers crossed it goes well. So to start off, what we're going to do is a base coat. And ultimately, the 5 techniques I'm going to concentrate on over the next few videos are the ones I think all beginners need to concentrate on. So we have base coat, which is ultimately your foundation. If you were building a house, you'd have the foundation. So you want to put a good coat of this on. It's got a well covered. It doesn't have to be tidy. You are going to paint over the top of this. It's just your foundation. So get that on. Then we're going to go on to layering, which is mainly the main technique I'm concentrating on in this video and probably over the next few videos. It's a perfect technique for getting highlights and layering and that into your models, which we will go through. Dry brushing we're not going to do in this one. Edge highlighting not so much, but they are definitely things a beginner should get used to. And I have to admit, I've tried a little bit of dry brushing off screen, and I really like dry brushing, so we're definitely gonna have to do a video on that. And then of course we've got wet layering, which I've never tried ever, and that should be fun when we get to it. So those are the 5 techniques I would suggest any newbie to start concentrating on. Get those under your hat, and then you can move on to some of these amazing techniques other people use, but at the moment those are the 5 you should concentrate on. So I have sped the video up a bit. Obviously it takes quite a while to paint a model, and as a newbie it takes me even longer. Ultimately I'm hoping that over time the more skill I pick up, the quicker I'll become. But for the time being, I figure time-lapse was probably the way forward. Obviously, if you prefer not to see a time-lapse, let me know in the comments below. I'm very open to other ideas. Later in the video, we do reduce the speed so we can see where I'm putting the detail in and that. As I say, this is my first time layering. And I was ultimately very surprised how well this turned out. It's quite incredible what you can learn from just watching videos and looking at other people's artwork, like their models. Don't just look at them, but actually look where they put the strokes in that. And I think it's really interesting how much out there is to learn from. Take advantage of that. Yeah, you're not going to make your model look like theirs. They've been painting for years, they're much better than you, but ultimately every task we undertake in this hobby we need to learn from, and very much we're going to learn from this. And at the end of the video I'm going to go through some of the things I've learned, one of those being that recording painting is not as easy as I thought it was. So there is a few out of focus bits and me not quite in the right place on the camera and that, but please bear with me, I am learning. This is my first ever attempt at this, so I'm hoping we're going to get better at that. Obviously, if you enjoy anything during this video, hit that like button, and if you haven't done already, please subscribe. We're a brand new channel, so it does help. My understanding of layering may be wrong. I'm going to go through it now. Obviously, if you know differently, let me know in the comments below. I'm eager to learn. If you know better, let me know. So layering basically is putting different layers of different shades of, I'm explaining this well, different shades of the same color on top of each other, but in smaller areas each time. So you build up this light and shadow area. Naturally, everything has light and shadow, and we want to be able to paint that into our model. So how I'm going to approach this is take 3 colours. And ultimately, the main 3 colours on this model we're using are red, green and white. That's the outfit. Yeah, we've got some skin in there. We've got some wooden parts and leather. Not really concentrating on those in this video. It's the clothing and trying to get some sort of shadow and light into that. So for the white, what I'm starting off with is a somber grey, a wolf grey and an off-white. That's my 3 colours. I am using a wet palette, and all my colours are on the palette before I start. I think this is very important. You don't have to keep stopping and opening bottles and shaking bottles. Get your paints on the palette ready to go. So we're going to mix, we're going to put a layer of somber grey on. That's our first step. Then we're going to mix the somber grey with the wolf grey to make a middle shade. That's our second step. Third step, wolf grey on its own. Again, going slightly less each time, covering less area, taking into account where we think the light is coming from, where we think the shadow should be. After that, we're going to go wolf grey mixed with off-white. So that's our next layer. And finally, the final layer will be the off-white. So 3 colours, 5 mixes, well, 5 colours made from 3 colours, and that's how we're going to go forward. So again, on the red, our base coat will be heavy red. Then we're going to mix that heavy red with scarlet blood. Then again, scarlet blood on its own. Next layer will be scarlet blood mixed with off-white. I do like off-white, it's very good. Not completely white, just a little bit off. It doesn't give it such a harsh mix. And then we've got the mix of scarlet blood with off-white, and then finally a bit more off-white. So not so much 3 shades of red, because I've actually only got 2. If I had another shade of red, I'd probably use that, but I don't. So the red's more mixing. Green, very much down to the same as the grey. We got 3 different shades. So we got the heavy green, goblin green, and livery green, and we're going to do the same mixes with those and build up those layers, always keeping in mind where the light is, where the shadow is, and hopefully that will all come together in the end. At this point, I'm slowly just trying to build up the layers. Some of the things I've learned doing this task, as I say, I've done 4 of these, 4, something like that of these at the moment. I'm trying to put on a nice even layer, not having any brush strokes. It's really important to the look. the smoother you can get it, and the smoother the transitions between the colours, the better. Like, so at the moment I'm doing very basic with the 5 different colours. You could add more shades into that. You could add black and into the dark, into the middle colour, and make it a bit darker, so you end up with more middle colours along the way. I'm guessing, not that I've tried, the more layers you do, probably thinner layers, more of them, the better transition you'll get. And I'll pick that up over time. I do really like the transition from grey to white, though. I'm very much an office white. I think I'd probably use too pure a white for the final finish. I think sort of more grey and less white would be even more eye-catching. But I just think the transition is beautiful. It works so nicely from that dark grey up to that bright white. Oops, there we go. Drop that, my bad. Some of the other things I learned from painting this model was my edge highlighting could do with a lot of work. I tried to do an edge highlight on the bow, and it's just a bit like all of this. I think I'm quite heavy-handed, and they need to be a bit more delicate and a bit more smooth. And again, that will come with time. The more I paint, the more models I paint, the more delicate and smooth I should be able to come. And that goes for anyone thinking of getting into this hobby. They should be able to start off at one stage and work up to the other, because ultimately you will just naturally improve as you go along. And if you pair that with looking at other painters and looking at how they do things and where they choose to put the light and choose to put the shadows, tie it all together, and you've got yourself on the right path for getting to the stage you want to. At the moment, I'm just enjoying painting the miniatures and seeing how I can improve. I do want to, at some point, build an army, but I have no idea what army to build. Let me know your suggestions in the comments below. I know that there are some fantastic armies out there, and I just can't make my mind up. I need some help sort of reducing the options. So yeah, let me know what you think I should go for in the description below. I tend to always paint fantasy, high fantasy, like Age of Sigmar, things like that, but I do really quite like 40k, the look of it. And I've got some models that I've just ordered, which should arrive soon, and I'm very excited, of the one-page rules jackals, and I think they are absolutely beautiful. I think they're going to be very tiny, and I sort of, they're my first challenge later down the line. I'm going to work up to them, but I'm really looking forward to trying to get some fur texture on them and things like that. But yeah, they might be a good army to build. I don't know, I've never played the game. I've always been into it for the building and the painting of the models. So playing the game would probably be really interesting. But that means I have to find some people to play with, which I'm sure I can in the future, but at the moment that's not an option. I very much skipped over all the detailing on this model because this video is all about the layering, and I think I sort of concentrated on the clothing. I've tried bits and pieces on the rest of the model, the detailing. Very much I tried a non-metallic metal for the first time, which I really like the look of non-metallic metal. If you look at the original model at the beginning of the video, I've just sort of slapped some silver metallic paint on its helmet, and it works, but I just think non-metallic metal looks so much crisp and nicer, and if you can get the reflections right, and that's something I really need to work on. I have to admit, I walk around work looking at everything that's got reflections now and have a look where those reflections are hitting and how they're reacting and where the light is to make it work like that. And I think I'm slowly going mad by just looking at every reflection I see. But it's ways like this we're going to learn. Sadly, the bases are going to have to stay unfinished for the time being. I do have some items on my Amazon wish list, texture paints and cork and some beautiful flowers and laser cut plants from gamer's grass, which look absolutely stunning, and I can't wait to play with those. But that's all going to have to wait until I get a bit of pocket money, and each time I get a bit of pocket money, I'm going to buy a little bit more off my list, and then eventually I'll be able to do bases, and I would like to build some dioramas in the future. I think that would be really cool, as well as building up an army once I've decided on which one to do. Here I'm just putting a tiny little line in to separate the white and the black, white and the red. Just a black line, tiny little one, and I think it works really well. It just gives that nice finish to the two colours meeting. One of the things I took notice of in one of Squidmar's videos was how he was talking about everything being made of cylinders or cubes or balls. And I thought, oh, that's nice. I'll keep that in mind. And then I came to do the reflection on the helmet, which it's sort of like not a ball. It's more like a pointy ball. And I was like, well, how does this work? So I worked from the tip of the helmet down either side and just made it get larger as it went down with a lighter color, and then we put on an even lighter color on top of that, and then I go in with a very pure white and just do an even smaller area. And for my first time of non-metallic metal, I think it looks quite nice. The reflection may not be how it should be at all, but in my head, that's how it should look. And I think that's something I need to learn as well, to stop picturing how I think shadows work and see how they actually work. So I'm going, oh, this bit's under the arm, so it should be really dark, but light would get there to certain points of it, and I'm not taking that into consideration. I cannot tell you how proud I am of this mini. It turned out so much better than I was expecting. And yes, I've got a long way to go. And yes, there's a lot to learn from this mini, which we're going to go through in a minute. But the great thing about this hobby is no matter what your skill level is, there's always things to learn. What have I learned from this? I've learned that, yeah, I'm a bit heavy-handed. I need to lighten up a bit. The blending worked nicely. I need to understand where light hits the body more. I need to concentrate on the face, because we've done no details on the face, and that was intentional. I'm not at the point where I feel comfortable enough to paint detailed faces at the moment, so the face we very much left quite blank. But I think we've learned a lot from this. And another tip, I've painted 5 of these models now, all exactly the same. And each model has improved slightly more each time. And if you've got a set of models which are identical, it's a perfect... I know it sounds like quite a tedious project, painting the same thing over and over again. But ultimately, that's how you're going to build up your skill. It's going to be... You need to get your body used to doing those movements and improving, even if it's a tiny amount, even if you've improved from the first to the 5th one, a tiny amount, that is improvement. And that is exactly what we're going to concentrate going forward. And with that said, until next time, I'll see you again.